and then will pick up people and are just throwing them on fires to get them out of his way.
Yeah.
Combatants, not just random people. That'd be kind of funny. But combatants, you know?
Of course.
Bro is cooking right now, right?
Literally.
Here we get a...
As a disclaimer, we at Two Orks, One Squig would like to stress the importance of freedom of opinion, freedom of speech, the crying of hate, and the non-usage of slang terms of slander in all of its forms to oppress or hinder anyone's development or progress. Understand that this is a fictional timeline based on fictional characters in a fictional universe doing fictional things. Although there are connections to humanity and humanity's beliefs are paramount to understanding the ins and outs of this universe, this is a work of fiction told through a creative lens, not indicative of our own beliefs or grievances. Remember to have fun and spread the word of our podcast to everyone curious about Warhammer 40k or the Horus Heresy. Now let's get into the episode.
Okay, so welcome back to part 2 of First 5 Short Stories, episode 2. How are you excited to be here? Like seconds later, Connor?
Seconds later.
Yeah. So, part
Through the magic
2,
of editing.
Yeah, exactly. Part 2 of episode 2, First 5 Short Stories. Because again, we've stated that it's longer. It takes forever, right? Like, it took me like 20 hours to put this together, and probably that to edit it as well, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's a monumental task that we're trying to accomplish, and we're still trying to figure out how we're doing it and what information is really relevant. So I know I tend to like ramble on and stuff, but we're really trying to review these books in a way that makes you feel like you read them yourself, not just how some of the wikis out there for this hobby, for this IP, are just like single sentences or like 2 sentences of what the book is about, and we're trying to just tell these stories to each other and talk about them, Yeah. And so from a lore standpoint, like, I probably know more about the Horus Heresy series than like anyone I know. So it's good to be able to say that because we're reading through the whole thing together, and I've read through it before, but it's just like going through and really digesting it in a way that's really like, setting it to memory, right? It's great.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I'm glad you're here joining us. Well, you're here joining me for sure. Learning in it, Connor. I think that this is something I'm sort of dragging you through, but I think you have a little bit of interest in it.
I have an interest in it. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that you're dragging me through it. I'm here on my, I'm here
of your own volition, right?
Yeah,
he's not here against his will. If this is ever used to be used in a court document, Connor is doing this of his own free will.
Yeah, until the next episode.
Until the next episode. Yeah, episode 3. Now you're stuck here. So, without further ado, we'll get back into episode 2, First 5 Short Stories, part 2.
Part 2.
So the third story tonight is called Canticle. It's written by David Geimer, and it was actually published August 18th, 2020, in a book, an anthology series called Scions of the Emperor. And it is not currently narrated by anyone because it's not an Audible, but it is a published book. Okay. This book is kind of out there in its interpretation of one of the sons of the Emperor. It's a good story, but it's not the most beloved story of this particular character for sure. It's not really considered controversial, but there is a lot of misunderstanding of this book and the character here based off of the darker tone of this tale. Some also feel that certain elements of this book could have been more fleshed out.
Okay.
I also need to preface this by, if you know the numbers of the Primarchs, the beginning is going to give away which one this is about. But
I only know the first one. That's it.
Well, since you don't know the numbers, it'll be a good reveal at the end. Their name is never stated in this, but I'll tell you who it is at the end. I do need to state, though, about this character that I love to take the piss out of this character because of the way that he is written, right? Every time you are going to hear about this guy moving forward, I am going to push this guy, right? Because he does things that are just the same over and over and over.
Heard.
I don't think that's
He's
bad.
insane.
I don't think that's bad. He just is always himself. His flaw is that he is who he is. And that's the biggest thing. So whenever things come up, I'm just going to be like, he pulls a total himself because this is always what he does, right? They wrote his character into a corner and then kept him there. That's it. In the timeline, this is placed somewhere during the very early 800s of M30.
Mm-hmm.
The favorite quote from this book is, "There is something I still have to do. When it is done, perhaps I will be able to tell you." The main character.
Okay.
The story starts with a being known as X. Starting out strong here, bro. Do you know who that is? Do you know who X is?
I don't, but I am assuming that it's the Roman numeral 10. Or that's what
let's jog your memory here a little bit. He's a boy with no name, and he was in a cryopod with a big X on the side of it, which crash landed on the peaks of a mysterious world. Well, we know what he's supposed to be, even if you don't know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
His crashing there has caused some confusion, mostly within himself, but also a lot of damage to a fortress of some inhabitants we soon see to be called the Storm Giants of Karashi Pinnacle. Sounds epic already.
Right.
There is a lot of stuff in this book that I think you're going to geek out over.
Okay.
Despite this boy not having a name, he gains a few, we are told, by several groups from the, around the beginning of the story. The Storm Giants took to calling him Cataclysm. Okay? The Mecharachnids, do you know what a Mecharachnid is?
I'm going to assume a large spider.
Not mega, mecha. It's a mechanical spider. Yes.
Okay, it's a mechanical spider. Sorry.
The Megarachnids are another species that we will see in another story, but the Mecharachnids and the phase wraiths in their labyrinth tombs. Does that describe anybody to you? Just think about that.
The maze wraiths and the labyrinth tombs.
Just think about that. The Mecharachnids and the phase wraiths in their labyrinth tombs call him Rehun Necher, which is the son of man. And the fragment warlords of the Subliminat call him Flesh. The phantasms and ghosts of misshaped code personalities in old, worn-out machines called him the Finality. And he calls himself Hunter.
Okay.
So we're starting out pretty strong here with this character. There is a lot to unpack here. We will get to it piece by piece, which is a wonderful world building on what the factions, living and undead, look like on this planet that X has fallen onto. The Storm Giants are described almost like Storm Atronachs here as, quote, elementals of dark rock fused into cognitive sheaths of mineral armor, artificer sages and warrior mystics. It's really amazing stuff. I wonder how they came to be, for sure, you know? But we get from the beginning of the story that his planetfall in the cryopod had struck their mountain fortress and broken it apart in a section, releasing something known as the Great Wyrm. Wyrm, like Wyrm,
Mm-hmm.
which he had been unable to stop because he was a child, I'm assuming, because he popped out of the cryopod, unleashed whatever this was, and then tried to fight it day one, bro. You know, he comes out of the pod and he hears the little crystal on his arm on the island, and he's about to put some whoop ass on or whatever this is, and it doesn't kill him in this section, so he's pretty amazing. But he actually took up the name Hunter as he strove after this great worm, even tracking it across the black ice-covered surface world. But let's dive deeper as to what seems to have been on this world that we would not see fully awakened until almost 10,000 years after this. Quote, further south, where black ice gave way to gritty tundra. You ready? The pyramid complexes of aeons lost civilizations broke through the layers of dust, their perfect geometry unscarred by the howling storms, their seals unbroken until the coming of the boy. The mecharachnids and phase wraiths, the labyrinths of those tombs had not sought to name him, only to kill him. Do you know what's on this planet that he landed on?
I'm assuming Necrons.
It is a Necron tomb world. Now, keep in mind, the Necrons are not fully awakened for 10,000 more years. So they are not around in 30K.
Mm-hmm.
There are several of their artifacts and weapons. Mainly, this little thing right here that my favorite Primarch holds. This is called the Pale Spear. It is considered a Necron device. So they do exist, but they're hard to come by. They appear to be sleeping beneath the surface of this world. I'm glad that you are able to tell these are the Necrons. These fragment warlords of the Subliminat described earlier seem to be this world's form of techno-barbarian like Terra had. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they're just resource witches. It's hard to say. It doesn't say much about them. They call him the Flesh because literally he has skin and they want it. So whatever it is they do with the skin, it isn't stated, but they want it, so they call him Flesh. Okay. Regardless what they wanted from him, he wanted nothing to do with them and ended them one after another until they were all gone. He definitely sounds like a badass.
Yeah.
The story just solidifies this by showing him as a wandering demigod next, by saying he didn't need a name. He doesn't even need it, right? It had no point to him. Quote, what need did he have for a name? He had walked from the wreckage of the Black Pinnacle and the ruins of the once mighty civilization therein for a time he could not track and a distance he could not measure, ever south, following the trail of the biomechanical beast he had set loose. Bro is the wanderer.
He's the Ronin.
He's just walking.
Yeah.
Knowing where this character goes, it's a total build-up here. This planet here is described as a desolate death world, where there was so much stormy coverage and turbulence that each blow of wind was that of an apocalypse. It is stated.
Good Lord.
There isn't even a day-night cycle here because the only light that comes to the surface is from its torrential thunder cracks and lightning fires along the surface that produce some of the only light on the planet. So there's just it's covered in a thunderstorm that's always going, and as it's going, it's creating light. There is no day-night cycle. The only way he can gauge time here is by the lengthening of his limbs and the events he can remember. I mean, come on, this world sounds like it sucks. Only way he can measure time is by how big he's getting.
Right.
It's by the years that you can look back on. It's fucking wild. And in all the time that he's walked for years like that, he, quote, for not once in all that time had he encountered another being that came anywhere to resembling himself. Bro is just the guy on this planet.
He is Jet Li the one.
He is the guy. And in all those years he's been walking, he has yet to meet another person that had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. He comes across a body here that gives him pause amongst the black sand-blown surface of this world. So not only is it always storming, not only is the wind howling to the point where you can't see shit in front of you, not only are there people trying to kill him, not only is there some sort of walking beast out there that he's tracking, it also, there is black sand that rolls across the surface of this, creating an ever-shifting landscape. So even if you could tell where you were going by visual stimulus, it doesn't matter, because by the time you get there, it's going to look completely different.
Heard.
This world sounds like it sucks ass. Like one of the worst worlds possible to land on.
Heard.
It gives him pause because in everything he's seen, this body looks the most like his that anything ever has that he has seen, and that is the saddest shit to think about, because you have more in common with this corpse than any living thing you've ever come across.
Yeah.
But he ultimately sees this body as unimportant in the grand scheme of things and just keeps marching on, which this is where it's going to come to. It is such a this guy, specifically this specific guy thing, to be like, oh, an emotion that makes me question life. Next. This is him. This is him. And he will always be this way. Okay. So I'm going to point it out every single time. He keeps walking until we get a glimpse of what that corpse was. It appears to be some of the people on the planet who are getting attacked by that beast he's been hunting. They have a massive low-centered transport hauler here, described as, at least to me, like an elephant from Halo 3. If you haven't ever seen one, you can look up a picture of one. I wouldn't do it right now, but definitely do, because that's what it kind of resembles to me. But as low and flat as it is, the beast that he's following is so large that it has flipped it on its side. So it's sitting at a weird-ass angle because it is much wider than it is tall, but it is on its side now.
Interesting.
With its wheels hanging out over him. And it's such a big vehicle that even whoever this guy is, the wheels are wider because they're on their side. The wheels are wider than he is tall.
It's a big wagon.
Yeah. Okay. So you ready to hear how this guy survives?
Yeah.
So what he's been eating this whole time, you ask me. Just like, give me a guess, because the story literally starts saying he getting hungry here. It literally describes him as like Pooh Bear. I got a rumbly in my tumbly now, and I can remember how long it's been since I ate. Like, that's how he's gauging time. He's hungry. What do you think he eats on this planet?
What were after him that wanted his flesh?
The Subliminat. They're all dead.
Heard. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah. So he eats some sand that's been blowing around, and that's how he gets substance. Oh, and he literally gets minerals and compounds he needs by eating metal ore and fragments to wash it down with.
Good lord.
Bro is eating sheets of metal sandwiches with ore bits and sand aioli. And I mean, he's literally surviving eating minerals. It's described as he puts the sand in his mouth and he chews it until all of the metals and minerals come out of it. And then he swallows that, spits the sand out.
Okay.
Bro is a total that guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So man even thinks the last time he got hungry, he had eaten his fill after killing the last lords of the Subliminat. So the last time he ate was when he killed the Subliminat, however long ago that was.
Mm-hmm.
Where he broke open their healing vats and feasted, quote, he had broken into their amniosis vats, feasted on amino acid slurries and lipid pastes until he had been too full to move so much as an eyelid. He opened up like a Star Wars Bacta tank, and he's just like, just draining it, dude. But even that banquet had not satisfied his metabolism for long. Ain't nobody stopping this guy. He is just laying waste.
Mm-hmm.
We get a look at what he's wearing here, walking the world. Adamantium armor that he forged himself from scavenged materials, woven with bronze rings and, quote, ribbons of kinetomimetic crystals, chemically welded to sheets of ultra-hard glass steel.
Okay.
Bro is in his tech phase after ascending Arc right now. He is in the tech tier. Bro even holds what is described as a bardish, or a bardich, which is like a pole arm axe, or like a pole axe, but with a pointed ramming end as well, that the axe blade sort of curves into. Does that sound familiar?
It sounds kind of like a halberd, but different.
Sure. I'll give you a look at what it is, and when I show it to you, you're going to see how big this guy is. I'll show it to you after.
Heard.
It even molded itself into him after he tore it off of one of the phase wraiths. So it was metal. He pulled it off of something, and the metal welded itself to him.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not obvious, I will tell you that this weapon is off of like a Necron. So they have these massive fucking two-handed slicing axes.
I know what you're talking about now.
That's what this is, and he is wielding it like an axe with one hand. Okay?
Interesting.
That's how big he is. So he's examining this wrecked crawler when what is described as a tech zombie, I would assume it to be some kind of lesser flayed one, which is like an insane Necron. We'll get to those never, because that's not in 30K, but we can talk about it afterwards. It's chewing on wires. Soon enough, one becomes more as he crushes their head, stabs, and electrocutes them in this turned over crawler. Like he's climbed inside, he's killing these things off. He kills one here in such a ridiculously based way. I had to write it in here. He pulls its lungs out of his neck.
Oh my god.
No kidding. So he pulls its head off already. He's pulled it off, and it's still trying to eat him. So the neck stump is like banging against his chest. And he's thinking like, I got to get rid of it, or it's going to realize it doesn't have a head, and it's going to try some other way to kill me. And it keeps trying to eat him. So based on its programming, he says, quote, bits of gristle and rubberized tubing came away in his grasping fingers before he had dug away enough meat to uncover the beveled head of a copper spindle. So he has reached into this thing's collarbone, ripped its collarbone out, and then underneath there's like a copper head he can see. Okay? The boy pulled hard. It parted. A large chunk of augmatized respiratory system came with it, and then the thing finally died, asphyxiated, a rubber lung and spidery jumble of associated machinery jammed up into its neck. So it's got him and trying to get him, and he just puts two fingers in its collarbone, pulls the collarbone out, and reaches in and pulls the lungs out through that hole.
That's pretty hardcore.
Isn't that wild, dude?
That is like, pretty hardcore.
Like, I mean, bro eviscerated it. As he climbs through this wheeled beast, he comes across the pilot of the massive mover, and he's looking on and wondering about what these people were doing here. He has another this guy moment. He is presented with something new again, seeing this pilot without an exosuit. The one he saw outside was in a suit. This guy was not. And going, he's like looking at him. He's never seen a human being without armor on. He only just saw a human being with armor on 30 seconds ago. And then he goes, oh yeah, my armor got dinged up in the fight. I think I could just use all this metal in the room to fix it. And it's getting too small for me anyways.
Hurt.
So after, again, just seeing something brand new, he's like, now I got to fix my armor. And does that. He pulls the room apart. All the walls, all the computers, pulls them apart. Like, honestly, it's comical as hell to me, and I'm also kind of taking the piss about it because they really stuck to the script on this guy. You know, I mean, who he is as a person, it's just really utilitarian. He's doing all this thinking, fixing his armor and stuff, while he's chewing on metal cables in one hand and has one of the zombie cyborgs, their hand in the other side with the fingers stuck in his mouth. And he's just like, like fucking around with stuff. And he's chewing on this metal hand because he's hungry. He's literally chewing it over right now. You know what I'm saying? Total dude moment. So after all that, he smashes some computer consoles. He finds some information useful to him, kills some more metal men, and then even using a canteen as a fake grenade. He uses this to trick zombies by letting their guard down. So he like pulls the canteen out. We get a look at how intelligent he is, because he's like, if they see this, they're going to think it's a grenade. It's just a canteen. Throws it in the middle of the room. They all sort of like get out of the way, and he rips them apart. He finds an encrypted locked door in the floor of the mover, which would be the wall, but it's on its side. So in the floor of the mover, there's a door. It has an encryption on it. He says that it would have taken the cyborg zombies their entire lifetimes and throw useless combinations at it until their metal bodies rusted away. Not joking. The next sentence says, it took him 5 minutes.
Interesting.
I don't know how he's counting those minutes, but it took him 5 minutes.
That's another good point.
Sure. And I'm like, seriously, it's even quoted here. I quoted it here. His quote, it took the boy about 5 minutes. The fight beforehand was only marginally less challenging.
Okay.
Right? Which says a lot in either direction, since the previous fight takes a full page out of the 17 pages this story is to describe it. It takes a full page to describe the previous fight. This lock that it took 2 sentences to solve was only marginally less challenging than that fight. You know what I'm saying? Inside the locked door, and we're getting to the end of the story here. Inside the locked door, he finds a separate compartment. What do you suppose he finds in here?
Weapons.
No.
Oh.
Boy finds the food and water stores of prepackaged food and hydration packets. And he is ecstatic, dude. Bro is literally smiling, which is wild for who he is. That he's like, when you find out who this guy is and see him in later stories, you are going to be flabbergasted that he's eating Twinkies and Michelin pot pies with glasses of Tang here. You know, there's like, this is his story arc. He hears somebody say, drop your weapon. Wild for someone who has never heard another person talk to him like a human being. Like I would be flabbergasted. Literally listen to this quote. Okay. Quote. The boy was fluent in over a dozen languages. He had mastered the inscrutable lingua forms of the storm giants. This would be the Necrons. Translated the hieroglyph code of the great tomb computers, the tongues of past and future and of the realm beyond, where machine spirits dreamed. But he had never heard the words of immortal flesh spoken until then.
It's pretty hardcore.
Dude, he must have at least been a little bit less hungry. You know? Like, at least, dude. It's a woman holding a gun up at him who is aiming it straight at his face. He does his best Tarzan impersonation here, where he's like, you are like me. While Phil Collins plays the soundtrack and this, you know, in the background. This woman lets...
Gotta have Phil Collins.
Sure, yeah. Anyways, while Phil Collins is playing the soundtrack in the background, this woman lets X know she ain't playing nothing with this gun pointed at him. She tells him to drop the weapon again, and this Giga Chad just looks down at the weapon and says no.
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Kratos moment.
Yeah.
No. He notes how easy it would be to just kill her, and he tells her as much, that he can see how much ammo she has left based off the charge on the side of the rifle, right? And that if she misses her one shot, he would crush the weapon and the bones in her hand just in his fist. So he's going to grab the weapon with her hand attached and just crush the whole thing.
Yeah, it tracks.
She asks him what his name is, and he asks her, why does it matter? He notes that because the beast knocked them over and the cyborg zombies overran them so easy, that she must need a real weapon in order to survive because the other ones didn't do so hot. So he gives her his weapon, the Bardage, right? Which she can't even hold because it's fucking huge.
Mm-hmm.
He gives her this and she tells him that her clan could use someone like him. And here's really where all the conversation in this story takes place. Because again, you haven't heard any quotes. This is where the quote is. And it's the last quote in the book. She asks him again where, what his name is. And the quote here is, "There is something still left to do. And when it is done, perhaps I will tell you." Because he doesn't know his name yet. And he's still tracking the beast. So he refuses to come with her, but tells her when he's done doing what he's doing, maybe he'll tell her his name. And that is Canticle by David Geimer. Do you know who this is?
No.
This is Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands Legion. We can get more into him at a later date. And we'll also see him again before the end of these stories tonight.
Okay.
Because he's in another one.
Oh.
30 years from now. But he's in another one. What did you think about the
Okay.
story? What did you think about it? Good?
It's a good story. I like the lone wandering aspect of it. The chewing on sands to pull out the minerals to spit the sand out is extreme,
Mm-hmm.
to say the least.
Ferrus Manus is weird because he's the Primarch of the Iron Hands, and the word Ferrus Manus means iron hands.
Mm-hmm.
Your fucking manos, meaning your hands, and Ferros, meaning iron. So his name is literally Iron Hand. But
Gotcha.
he also has iron hands, which are made of metal, because when he landed on the world, and it doesn't showcase it here, so maybe he doesn't have them yet, or maybe he does, and they're just hidden. When he landed on the world and fights the Great Worm, the Great Worm is actually a Necron construct, and when he interacts with it by ripping it apart, he gets infected by the necrodermis, which is living metal that the Necrons are made out of, that they can heal themselves with. So you can't really kill a Necron unless you utterly destroy it, because it can just heal itself back to whatever. He gets infected with that, and it starts taking over his body. So he is literally part metal, and it comes from his hands.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wonder how far the Necron disease really affects him.
It's not really a disease. It's like he's got nanites in his blood. And because the Emperor's gene science makes him like completely resilient to anything, his actual blood cells are fighting against the Necron nanomachines and to a stalemate. So his arms, like all the way up to, I believe, like half of his arm here, his arms are necrodermis. They're iron.
Gotcha.
But everything above that is flesh. So yeah, I mean, you'll see more of him as we go forward.
No, that's a really good story. Yeah. I like that one.
I thought it was nice. The planet he landed on, by the way, is called Medusa.
Okay.
So the next story that we're going to be reading tonight is Sinew of War by Darius Hinks. It was published in August 18th, so like 2 weeks before my birthday, right? 2020. It was in an anthology series, which we've already talked about what those are, right? You remember what anthology series are?
Yeah, a collection of short stories.
Perfect. It was in an anthology book and is currently not narrated by anyone, just like the previous story on Audible. It doesn't exist on Audible, but this is called Scions of the Emperor, this anthology book. Pretty cool. Haven't finished it because that's one of the ones I've never read before. So I'm coming through it as you are too here, off of the single digit, maybe on one hand, books and anthologies that I haven't read in this series based off of my own errors or misreading information on what to read next, in some instances. As far as that's concerned, this is one of the ones. So I'm super excited to have read it as well. It's not really considered controversial, but there are some people who wish Darius Hinks, the person who wrote this book, there are some people that wish he did more. Besides a few short stories or main stories, this is one of the only ones he's written, and he wrote it very well, but there are members within the community that wish he had written more. That's really where the controversy is for Darius Hinks.
They want him to write more in the book, or just more books in general?
More books in general. I think this one was really well written. This is also about as short as Canticle was. It was like 18 pages, maybe 19 pages. Canticle was 17 pages.
Gotcha.
So pretty short story here, but really cool lore. And this short story, published within the Scions of the Emperor anthology, is considered fun and exciting to read for fans of the Ultramarines. So this is actually about everyone's favorite golden blue boy Primarch, Roboute Guilliman, and his early life.
Okay.
In the book, he's kind of a young adult. I'd say he's not too old, but the timeline for this takes place between the years of 810 M30 and 837 M30. So there's about a 27-year span of where this could have taken place in the timeline. Lots of people see this book when they research Roboute Guilliman's early life. So, like, if you were to research what Roboute Guilliman's early life is like, or his childhood, this book would be the number one thing that comes up.
Right.
If you were looking in lore. Many really enjoy the story, like I said, but this book showcases the death of Roboute Guilliman's father, Conor, as he grapples with civil unrest in the capital city of Magna Macragge Civitas, which is the capital of the 500 Worlds.
Okay.
My favorite quote from this book is "Macragge will endure." That's spoken by the entire Senatorium chamber on Magna Macragge Civitas.
I thought there was going to be more, so it's
Nope. Macragge will endure.
Right.
Pretty cool. So this story starts off with a bang. The protagonist says that they are watching Macragge burn. It's like the first sentence. I watched Macragge burn. Macragge being the capital world of Ultramar. The home of Roboute Guilliman and the Million Worlds. In some lore, it's called the Million Worlds. In others, it's called the 500 Worlds. And there's a massive disparity between 500 and a million, right? We all know numbers. But I think as far as an empire goes, it was known as the Million Worlds, but you will most likely hear it referred to as the 500 Worlds.
Okay.
The protagonist of this book is watching it burn. We get some faction play here, saying that 7 cohorts of men loyal to a treyarch of people named Libanus, Galan, and Palantius are terrorizing the city. Now, this is a bit of, in my opinion, this is a bit of like foreshadowing that the character is telling you. And I'll bring it up again, but it's kind of confusing how the first couple sentences of this book, of the story, are written. However, it's kind of confusing how it's written here, but it sounds like you're being told information that the protagonist has at the end of the story now, like he's telling it to you, okay? Although he doesn't act on it, because I think it happens sort of out of sync. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Okay.
Like I'm having a little bit of a hard time following it.
The reason why, and I'll bring it up here in a second. The reason why is that Libanus, Galan, and Palantius are seen as aggressors here.
Okay.
When you will see the protagonist sort of betrayed by one of them. So it's like he's telling you, I watched Macragge burn. 7 cohorts of men loyal to these 3 people terrorized the city. And then he goes into telling you the story.
Okay.
As if he is his own character, and he doesn't know one of them has turned. In the story, the city is just falling apart.
Gotcha. It's a flashback,
Yeah,
and you
it's like a
don't know what
flashback,
just happened.
but
Okay.
it's I think that's how it's written, because if not, it's confusing.
Okay.
Because one of those three is like the plot twist of this book,
Mhm.
but the first couple sentences tells you that, and then it's just the way that it happens is weird. So I'll keep reading, but I'll bring it back up.
Okay.
So they are soldiers for hire and men of no honor who have turned traitor against McCragg and the king. That's the 7 cohorts.
Mhm.
We also get some world building through destruction here, saying that these insurgents tore down the tomb of Megaricus. They lit fires on the Proana Arc and or Proana Arch, and are actively in combat outside the Senatorum and Consul House at the heart of the city. So it kind of gives you like 4 districts: the Tomb of
Okay.
Megaricus, Proana Arch, Senatorum Chamber, and then the Council House. It's like real Fall of Rome turning on itself vibe here. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The protagonist here thinks killing for coin is lowborn and base cur material, and showcases what he thinks of what's going on. The protagonist is showing us how brilliant and aware of himself he is. This is his quote.
Mhm.
I do not think like others. I was a breed apart. Where others saw pieces of a puzzle, I saw the whole. Whether it was military strategy, theology, philosophy, my mind seemed to function on a different level to my peers. Sometimes I found the thought reassuring, other times it troubled me. Dude is a genius,
Heard.
but he just sucks at social things, right?
Okay.
Um, and you will learn this about him. Like he's a ruler, great, but he kind of lacks in the socializing aspect, or at least
Gotcha.
being relatable. Anyways, he and his men are moving through a city that people are panicking and blocking the movements of during the violence, when the thought of, quote, killing for coin strikes up a memory within the main character. He remembers hunting with his father, and his father notes here how he can tell he despises the other noblemen for how corrupt and selfish they are, and how blind they are to the needs of their, quote, needlessly oppressed people. Total Boy Scout kind of bloke, this guy.
Gotcha.
So like I said, his father is like listening to him just bitch about other nobles and how like corrupt and fucking like weird they are.
Yeah.
So again, and it's based off of their corruption is how he's judging them.
Is it based off how much corruption they have, or like what
Just what they
type of
get up
corruption?
to, yeah. You know, like what they get
Okay.
up to.
All right. I was just curious.
Yeah. No, you're good. He tells his father in this memory that he just wishes he could tear it all down and rebuild it without the corruption. So, what does any father do when his favorite son is feeling the weight of life?
Well, he burns down a city, apparently.
Nope. Nope. No. He goes out camping. So they go out camping in the mountains to get away from it all, and that's just what happens here in this memory. Like his father tries to spend some bonding time, but he hurts himself on this trip, and that's when our protagonist realizes that he isn't like his father. He's just not. His father isn't destined to keep on living. He is going to be gone someday, as the protagonist measures the weight of his mortality here. But
Mhm.
who do you think this is so far? We haven't been told who it is.
I mean, based off the information that I've been given, I would believe this would be the story of Roboute.
Sure, sure. It is, you know. His
Okay.
father here in the book is now stated as Conor Guilliman,
Okay.
which makes this character Roboute Guilliman for sure. And we already talked about it as well, who he is. He is dreading the day his father dies because he will be left to deal with all these fool politicians, these fools and these corrupted idiots, as he puts it himself, without the comfort of his father, which is such a human emotion for Roboute to feel, even if he can be sometimes a bit caged and tactile, like I said, where he just kind of misreads the humanity of situations for the practical.
Yeah.
This is a pretty human emotion, right? Like he's even though it's tinged with Roboute, which is like my father's gonna die and I have to deal with idiots. It's
It's more of a
still,
dread.
yeah, it's still dread, like human emotion.
Yeah.
His father gives him a coin to squeeze here in his fist, and shows him that no matter the pressure, Macragge will endure, like saying that the coin is Macragge and that his fist closing around it is Macragge will endure. As long as Macragge endures, he will always be with Roboute, his son.
Okay.
He is snapped away from this touching memory by one of his officers yelling that there is a new fight emerging at the Tirsus Gate. So Tirsus Gate, again, being another one of the areas here. So we get some more world building. The soldier is called Captain Melotus.
Okay.
Melotus. Roboute gives him a visual scowl here because Melotus is almost hysterical. It's almost unbecoming of an officer in Roboute's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He understands, though, because even though they were all just crushing a revolt on a place called Illyria, they had never seen their own country or home burn like this. So even though they've done it to other people, this has never happened to them. So it's understandable that this guy's hysterical. Guilliman splits his forces here, 5 cohorts to the Proana Arch and 5 cohorts to the Senatorum Chamber, and takes the rest with him to the Consul House to search for his father, King Conor. Roboute declares his age here to be, quote, well into my teenage years, so that would put him at 16 to 18 years old.
Yeah.
He's 16 to 18 years old now, and he's already a commander of men. So that just goes to show you he's already super tactile about it.
Yeah, I think it goes to show either how much of a genius he actually is, or
Sure,
how dumb the other people actually are.
right. And since it's Ultramar, and we know to expect greatness and military might from this this planetary system, we can assume it's not because everyone around him's dumb. It's because he's so damn smart. He says that even though he has fought wars for the trust of his father in the past, there has never been so much as a las carbine firing off in Macragge out of rage or revolution, which is wild to say.
Yeah.
Like, Macragge has never known murder.
Yeah.
Macragge has never known civil unrest.
Yeah, it just seems like this is the ideal city.
Yeah,
no
it's almost a utopia.
Only
sure.
good things.
Yes. Great visual world building, in my opinion. We even get a glimpse as to how many planets this current planetary system has in it by Roboute seeing statues of their namesake warrior heroes carved into immortal marble here. So there appears to be at least 6 planets in that planetary system. So Macragge, Ardium, Laphis, Thulium, Mortendar, and Nova Thulium.
Okay.
Yeah, Thulium, old Thulium, and that'd be like if it was old Mexico and New Mexico.
New Mexico,
yeah. That make up at least this sun's part of the 500 worlds of Ultramar. Okay, so this is at least 6 of them, right? Unfortunately for the soldiers I'm about to mention, Roboute is approached by a group of drunken, staggering soldiers here at the Marble Gardens. They are all messy and unkempt. They have torn insignias from their clothes. The lead guy sobers up very quickly when he realizes who he's stumbling up to. Roboute Guilliman.
Yeah.
And not only is he stumbling up to Roboute Guilliman, he's stumbling up to Roboute Guilliman with a gun drawn on him. So he's pointing a gun at Roboute, drunk and stumbling around until he walks up and realizes, oh shit, this is Roboute Guilliman.
Yeah. It's a big oh shit moment.
Yeah, exactly. He tried to pretend he isn't going to be turned into cold cuts here by Boar's Head Guilliman, but Guilliman himself finishes the joke for me and slices this motherfucker up.
Oh my god.
He literally, it's described as like he turns him into pieces. His colleagues are so stunned by the speed Guilliman is displaying that they don't even react before Roboute has already drawn his sidearm and ventilated all of them. So he cuts this guy down. It's described as like 4 or even 5 combatants versus Roboute. Before the pieces of this guy hit the ground, he's already fired 5 rounds and killed these other guys.
Good lord.
Yeah, that's how fast Primarchs are. And even that, Roboute is still not as fast as Jagatai Khan.
White Scars.
White Scars, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. I had to think for a
So
second.
even as fast as that is described, he's still not as fast as Jagus Icon.
Okay.
As he moves on here, he sees a firefight at the doors into the console house where enemies are firing down from the console house staircase to suppress a group of loyalist soldiers trying to defend or retake the area. But he doesn't truly know who here, is on which side, and does a
Mhm.
total Roboute moment. Not as much as a Ferrus Manus moment where I go, this guy, because Roboute does have some different writing, whereas Ferrus
Yeah.
Manus is just kind of like the same.
Mhm.
He chose a Roboute Guilliman moment here where he decides to tell his men to fire on the ones at the stairs because they are drunk and carousing about, which is not something a true son of Macragge does, so they have to be traitors.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
So because these guys, he's like, I don't know which ones are which. And then he just looks at them and he's like, those ones are drunk idiots. And that's not what a man of Macragge would do. It just shoots them. He's like No Country for Old Men, kind of just like
or
old cowboy Roboute Guilliman here. Typecasting to the maximum for him, for sure. You are a baseborn cur. You're a traitor. Roboute is noting here that he isn't going for cover, even though his men are taking fire. So he's just like walking and killing.
right.
Because honestly, there's not much he knows of that can kill him. He's like describing it almost as Superman. He's like, nothing has ever been able to pierce my skin, so I don't use cover. I just walk forward.
Yeah.
He even hid that fact from his father to make his father feel more like a father figure to him, which is like total Chuck Norris kind of mentality, right?
Yeah.
Chuck Norris was a father figure to his own father. It's like that. Roboute Guilliman only let his father think he was his father. That
Yeah.
he lets him, he doesn't want him to feel, he doesn't want to feel more than mortal compared to his father.
Mhm.
Because how can his father compare to the son of a god, basically?
You don't.
In all the firefight, Roboute just walks up the stairs in the middle of everything and does his best Dirty Harry and just pops off on these guys, sending all of them directly to the farm.
Good lord.
All of them. And it's not really described how many there are here, but he annihilates them. There's a quote here about it that says, "The drunks were still deciding how to respond to my presence when I opened holes in their skulls." Right? They sprawled across the top of the steps, their guns clattered to the rockcrete. Bro is shitting on them like a Battlefront lobby. He's just popping, dude. And he's like not even thinking about, to him, this is just business, right? This is how the war goes. You're a traitor, you die.
Yeah.
Roboute Guilliman. Just when he's about to get crossfired by some traitors, he hears someone call out to him. It's a man named Galan, who was mentioned earlier. Okay, this is what I'm trying to say. So Galan comes in from the side here,
Mhm.
but he is Guilliman's reinforcements.
Okay.
And they like see each other and they're like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you for showing up. But it was just stated at the beginning that Galan, Libanus, and Palantius were traitors that had 7 cohorts of men that turned. But here, that's why I'm saying, like, I think what the writer's trying to say here is that you're being given information at the very beginning, and then the story starts.
Yeah.
Because these guys currently aren't traitors, but we know that they are. Anyways,
They will be.
They will be. That's what I mean. That's why I said it's kind of confusing.
I follow what's going on.
Yeah.
I get it.
So it's hard for me to understand why Guilliman would identify them as traitors again, but then embraces them. That's what I'm getting at. As Galan and Guilliman sort of embrace here, they join forces and they're going to go find Conor Guilliman in the council house.
Right.
So Roboute asks if his father's inside, and Galan says, quote, "He's been holding back the mob for hours, but everything went quiet half an hour ago. I rushed over here as fast as I could." As they enter the council house, Roboute tells us that the whole hall is strewn with bodies. They are even hanging from the statues and high places of the hall. So whatever CQB was happening in here,
it was going.
It was popping, dude. And as stated before, Conor has been holed up in like his statesman room, guarding that just like pixel peeking them, He and his guards have been slaying everyone who's coming in here. So
The hole in this wall, and then go around the corner and put a hole in that wall.
Exactly. They split up here, and they're going to cover both sides of the upper floor of the console house as they start taking fire from the household guards who have turned traitor.
Mhm.
So basically, they're walking into the back of an engagement. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
The traitors had already taken the entrance. They forced their way in. They kept some guards in the back, and they're still fighting to get to Conor. But Roboute and them come in the back and just immediately start slaughtering them all the way into the fight.
Yeah, they're infiltrating their back line.
Yes. So the fight turns real close quarters here as the swords come out. And Roboute orders the traitors to lay down their weapons and submit. His control of humans through the power of his voice gives them pause. That's like his thing. He's just very stately. As he's like, lay down your weapons, they pause, and he notes how they sort of just stop for a second. And in that time, it's just enough time for him to rearrange their IQ scores into single-digit numbers with his lasgun. So in that time, he just starts popping off with headshots. He even says here, quote, "I feel no pity as they thud to the floor, their faces smoldering and their limbs convulsing." He's like, total Judge Dredd Guilliman here, He's like, nobody's above the law. Surrender. They're like, what?
I am the law.
Yeah, surrender. And then they just pops them off before they can say what. You see this amazing methodical killing talent side he has. You will see it again amongst the worlds of Macragge much later. His gut feeling set in, though, here as they get close to Conor's chamber. It doesn't look good. As they examine the room, Roboute draws his gun on something on the floor and finds to his horror that it is his father he's drawn on. As they move to help Conor holds up a hand to stop them, and that's when they notice the wounds he's taken and the shots he has in his body. The holes punched through him. He isn't going to make it. He's even like holding his hand over a wound. As Roboute sinks to his knees to help Conor seems to be trying to tell Roboute something urgently, but can't speak because he's got a slashed throat.
Mhm.
His father is dying here, but he hands Roboute a coin to symbolize the time that they were talking together, and then Conor dies in his son's arms.
Mhm.
The only Guilliman I will be referring to after this now is Roboute.
Yeah.
Roboute is furious. Again, he rarely has these moments where he is anything more than like decisive and stately, but he is going to crash out here. Galan tries to get Roboute moving, but Guilliman says, "You want me to just leave him here like this?" Like he's showing a lot of emotion here. But Galan says, quote, "Would Conor want you to watch over his corpse while his life's work is being ruined? Think of your duty to Macragge." And like everyone's like this on Macragge. Everyone is honor bound, dutiful. They're all perfect citizens.
Yeah.
It's really just Roboute Guilliman in a nutshell. Galan tells him they must get into the active Senate session that's playing out and tell them what's happened. There is no way they could elect another consul now that Conor is dead, especially during the unrest, because it would be catastrophic, right? Like, people see Conor as the king.
Yeah.
So if they start trying to elect, the whole thing is going to fall apart.
Right. Yeah, it's political unrest.
Straight up. As he walks through the city to let the Senatorum know what's up, he recalls rioters and armed soldiers getting in his way, and he is ashamed at how he crushed them physically, saying, quote, "I am ashamed to recall how I vented my rage, smashing walls with their corpses, pummeling skulls with my fist, hurling living men onto fires." Bro is just like grabbing people.
Straight up apocalyptic.
Yeah, he's grabbing people, throwing them into walls. He's just busting their heads open, and then will pick up people and are just throwing them on fires to get them out of his way.
Yeah.
Combatants, not just random people. That'd be kind of funny. But combatants,
Of course.
Bro is cooking right now. right?
Literally.
Here we get here we get a glimpse of something. Gallan reports that over the Vox, the Senate want Gallan to stand as sole consul with the death of Conor. Roboute is surprised by this turn of events and questions it instantly. Roboute remarks that his perception and hearing here far surpass the average human, as even as they step inside the Hall of Concord, which is what the Senatorum is, he can hear that they are voting on and discussing things in the other rooms. So his hearing is so good that the second he walks into a place where political things are happening, he can hear through the walls at what they're discussing.
Or total Superman. Got it.
And he's also sickened by what he's hearing. Corrupt patricians trying to get what's theirs and grow it in the wake of such a crisis, instead of making decisions for their people. Gallan tells Roboute to clean himself before they head into the Senatorum, because if he enters covered in blood and ashes, there will be an even bigger commotion and no one will listen to him.
Right.
It feels like Gallan is maneuvering Roboute next to him to curry favor with the other senators by showing that Conor's son is standing with him. He's like, you need to clean yourself up. We're both going to talk. I'll do the talking. You be the muscle, but people know you. So he's like trying to insinuate himself next to Roboute to strengthen his position. It's definitely what I would do if I was a corrupt politician, right? It's definitely what I would do. He opts for a simple blue and white toga here that will be less gaudy than the gold ones most wear. This is Roboute. So he goes into the next room. He opts for the new, the blue and white toga, but the serf there to dress him hesitates, which puts him on guard. Roboute, nothing passes Roboute.
Right.
Guilliman is so perceptive. So because everyone on McCraig is duty bound, this serf who's like hesitating to dress someone of his station immediately puts him onto suspicion. The room has the same chemical smell from the consul house where the fighting was, and the same smell he remembered from the Illyrian revolt before. He remembers it's the same tainted smell that neurotoxin-coated blades have. So he can smell a poisoned knife in this room.
Right.
He snaps back just as the serf draws a blade to assassinate him in the side room. And I knew it. It's stated, but now Gallan is a traitor, right? Gallan sent him in here to change his clothes, and then this serf that comes in who hesitated to change Roboute Guilliman's clothes, which makes him a traitor because no true son of a crag would ever hesitate to put my toga on, right? The total McCrag thing to say, is in league with Gallan trying to assassinate him. So the serf, I don't know why it's written this way after all we just saw. The serf gets out of Roboute's grip here, and I find it really hard to believe that he does. But it does say he's hopped up on combat stims. Okay, so maybe a half-naked Roboute Guilliman is just slightly as powerful as a cracked out serf on combat stims. Maybe that's it's like how many serfs versus how many Guillimans, right? It's like, is it 500 cracked out serfs versus one Guilliman? Would you rather fight a cracked out serf shaped like Guilliman or Guilliman himself? It's like that, right? But also, right? Guilliman does say, though, I got to point out, Guilliman does say that he is a teenager. So maybe it's like, who would win, cracked out serf or teenage Roboute Guilliman half naked, right? Roboute even questions how the guy escaped. Like, he's like, this man gets out of my grip somehow. Like, he even says it in the story, right? But
two characters with plot armor.
But again, then he also goes on to say that he hasn't slept since returning from the Illyrian campaign, which was a while ago, so maybe he just sleepy.
Right.
It does, and this is one of those things, like, it's literally multiple sentences reinforcing the fact that this guy should not have gotten out of Roboute's grip. Even Roboute himself questioning it, why this guy was able to squirm out of him. But I don't know. Roboute punches him in the side of the head here so hard, he foams at the mouth and dies before Roboute can get him to confess who hired this man to kill him. It literally describes it. He's like, "You wriggled out of my grip, gotcha," and just punches him in the side of the head.
My God.
And then he's like, "Oh no, he's dead."
Oh no. I guess we'll never figure out who sent him.
But here's what happens, right? So it describes that Roboute actually made this guy bite down on his own cyanide tooth when he punched him in the side of the head. So it's like a double whammy combo, right? He rushes to get out of here and into the Senatorum. But he sees the coin his father Conor had given him before dying, laying on the ground after this shuffling. And to Guilliman's surprise, something is different about this coin. He is shocked when he sees it. And he runs to the Senatorum. What do you think is going to be different about the coin?
It's double-headed.
Well, how so?
Like 2 heads, one on each side, instead of a head and a tails.
Gotcha. It was described, although I didn't write it down. It was described that the coins, because Galan and his father are like a duo. His Conor was the king, and Galan was like his right-hand man. The coin has Conor on one side and Galan on the other. Okay, so that's a standard Macragge coin. So as Roboute shows up and enters the Senatorum, we see Galan rallying the audience into enacting violence. He's inciting them. He's moving them towards hating and decrying Conor and Roboute Guilliman, saying they are responsible for what's going on outside and lying to the whole assembly as he tries to take control without knowing that Roboute is standing behind him, like that meme of The Undertaker and AJ Styles.
Yeah.
Roboute draws the blade the serf had covered in neurotoxin and just puts it to Galan's throat, like just points it at him, describing for all the assembly that he asked Conor before his death who was responsible, and Conor gave him this coin. He toys with Galan here as he describes the coin, saying, quote, "Very rare, I imagine," I said, turning it in my fingers. "Mistakenly minted, rather than showing both consuls, the same face appears on both sides. Your face, Galan." So this was a misprinted coin, or a misminted coin, that was supposed to have Conor on one side and Galan on the other, and instead it was printed with 2 Galans that his father just so happened to be holding. And it's I don't like this, right? But I it's okay.
All the plot devices are there because they need to be there.
Right, sure. To commend Galan here, he immediately goes to anger and tries to justify this as he commits to the bit against Roboute, straight to his face. So, I mean, that's ballsy for sure. As the tensions grow and the crowd starts to join in, we realize that it's not against Roboute. It's in favor of him, even though Galan is trying to decry Roboute as an outsider and an interloper, and Conor as a weak-hearted traitor. Roboute goes full demi-emperor here and states that Macragge should free its citizens and lift them up as a way to bolster their power and standards of living. Their military will grow, their wealth will prosper, and their people will rejoice if taken out from under the yoke of tyranny and set to thrive and prosper. That's not a quote, that's just a distillation of what he says. As Galan rails against Roboute and Conor reforms, all Roboute wants to do is gut this guy, like pulling the cheese out of a mozzarella stick. That's all Roboute wants to do, but he realizes something. The world and all these nobles are watching what he does next. If he kills Galan, Galan will be right about him as a barbaric brute. But he stays the blade, and he says, quote, "It is not the job of a single man to pass judgment," I said, looking out across the crowd. "It is the job of the Senate. Macragge is greater than any of us. Galan killed my father, but I would rather see him go free than tear this council apart. If you would have this man as your consul, then so be it. But you heard him lie to you. He has admitted it without shame, and you must choose your course of action quickly." Now, Guilliman, very stately, he's not been on the council, or he's not a consul. So Galan, who was a consul, is so sure of himself here that even this is going to make people not join Roboute. He's about to laugh when the whole assembly starts calling him a traitor. one by one, everyone turns on him to cast him off the podium. Even a man that Roboute Guilliman recognizes as always having hated Roboute is supporting him now against Galan. And Galan is dragged, screaming and orating from the Senatorium.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this man, described as Adarin, the man Roboute said hated him, comes forward to speak to him in front of everyone there. He removes the laurels of his office, which are like these golden leaves that he's wearing, like a laurel. He removes his laurels of office and casts them down at Roboute's feet. It's described as this is what's done when someone gives up their position to serve under someone else. So it's like he owes Roboute fealty now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So he throws him down at his feet. Others join in as Adarin praises Roboute here by saying, quote, "I have never heard a truer son of Macragge. Your father lies slain not a kilometer from here, and you have spoken calmly and clearly in the face of his murderer. You put the needs of the Senate before your own pain. You are an example, Roboute Guilliman, to all of us." So many of the nobles swear fealty to Roboute here. He says it's like he's surrounded by golden leaves of so many laurels. It's like he's it's like he's surrounded by a pile of leaves. And he's a big boy, so that's a big pile.
Yeah.
This right here is where the quote of the story comes from. This is also the last little bit, where Roboute again thinks of his father here and says to himself, "Macragge will endure." And as he's sort of muttering that, it's picked up as a cry from everyone in the hall, one after another. Macragge will endure. That's it.
That's pretty cool.
That was the Sinew of War. How'd you like it?
I like it. What happened to the other conflicts?
Yeah.
I see why people wanted him to write more.
Well, yeah, people wanted him to write more in not just this, but more in general, right? Like they want to see more things he's published. I personally think this is why he hasn't published more. This story is lacking a bit, like you just said. What happened to the conflicts? You know, what happened to everything else? I don't think that's really the point of this story, though. So I understand. But
yeah, I mean, the story was about Roboute, not the
Sure.
conflicts that are going on around him.
Sure. Seeing him handle more of it, or maybe even a little bit past this, that would have gone a long way for me, for to make this a better story. But I mean, I enjoyed it. Sure,
It was a good story.
Yeah. The last story we're going to be covering tonight is one of my personal top 65 story. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's totally up there as like top of. If I had to put a number on it, it would be a lot more stories than I'm willing to put numbers on. But it's up there.
Heard.
It was written by Nick Kime. Love Nick Kime. It was published in March of 2018 in the Sons of the Emperor anthology book, and is narrated by the talented Christopher Tester. Now, Christopher Tester also did Lupus Daemonis as well.
Heard.
So this short story is also seen very fondly by most of the community for the insights it gives into how the Emperor perceives one of his favorite sons, Vulkan. This story is about the Lord of Drakes himself, Vulkan. I really like Vulkan. I don't like him enough to love him, but Vulkan is, without a doubt, one of the best Primarchs.
Heard.
He's also one of the greatest creations of the Emperor, and even the Emperor says it to him. Even out of all the Primarchs, where he was able to create in Vulkan things he couldn't create in other Primarchs, he melded two things together, but we'll get into that more later.
Heard.
Vulkan is not just a Primarch. Let me put it that way. It's considered controversial because a lot of people call it predictable. As well as people seeing it as a kind of narrow view or held back in some places. The story is what you would expect. I don't really see that as a bad thing because we all love to see more about the Primarchs we know and love. So this could be bland for you, but the best story someone's ever read. So
yeah,
just be kind when critiquing, because this is a series of hobbyists, a series of fans. So when you're critiquing a book, don't just take your point into account. I get that it's bland and boring to you. It's not the best story to me, but I really enjoyed it. So I don't see where people would say that. In the timeline, this is placed as during the year 835 of M30.
Okay.
So this is one of my favorite short stories, as stated earlier, that deals with a Primarch based off of the imagery here. You know it's going to be Vulkan, with Mercy of the Dragon. My favorite quote from this book is actually from the Emperor himself. The Emperor says in this book, "Your lesson, Vulkan, it is the most crucial, and you are uniquely disposed to teach it."
Mm-hmm.
This story starts with two figures watching a battle from afar, which is truly remarkable because most of these stories start with people watching a battle up close, right? Like even the one earlier that we just went through, Sinew of War, was like in the shit.
Yes.
But they are watching from afar a city being attacked. They're watching the fall of the last wall of defenses around a city named Venikov. We also hear that colloquially, the city here was called the Bloody Bastion by a group of people known as the Ranknar Blood Guard.
Ranknar Blood Guard.
The Ranknar Blood Guard.
Okay.
They are described as reavers or blood barbarians. You know what I mean by a reaver?
I've seen several different depictions of reavers, but
yeah, like a blood barbarian or like a blood paladin, right? Like a dark paladin. They're seen as like reavers or blood barbarians. They worship a god called Ranknar, and they had once believed Venikov to be impregnable and invulnerable. They were wrong, as we will find out soon enough. A man named Sardau is watching the Imperial War Machine, quote here, right? The Imperial War Machine grind on through the city from a distance, watching the end of the Great Citadel through a device known as an omniscope. I'm assuming it's like a rangefinder.
Heard.
But again, everything in Warhammer, because they don't like to describe things technologically, everything in Warhammer has a generalized name. So it is like omniscope. It could be a rangefinder. It could literally be a pair of binoculars. It could be a fucking periscope. It could be all sorts of things. But it just falls under the description of omniscope. Like all booze falls under Amasec. Every booze is Amasec. This man, Sardau, views the Imperium as oppressors and destroyers, and he and his people are defending and fleeing from them.
Okay.
As he looks on, another voice and character joins here, just simply asking him from behind, how many? It's a vague question for sure, but it will be illuminated soon enough. This character, Vetus, is described as sounding weary, as, quote, not as with the fatigue of war, but with a spiritual malaise that came with the almost certain knowledge that your culture and everything you knew should be extinguished and replaced by another. So, it's super heavy stuff to feel from someone's voice.
Yeah.
Sardau recalls the Emperor here by likening his proclamations of unity and compliance, seeming to himself to be conquest and annihilation. So the Emperor talks about unity, he sees conquest. He talks about compliance, he thinks annihilation. Vetus wants to know again, how many? As a means to know how many warriors can be seen fleeing the destruction of Venikov. Sardau tells him that Blood Marshal Enoch made his last stand at the keep in the south part of the city, and this planet is called Erod.
Okay.
The how many question is answered by a few thousand. And Vetus remarks how little this number seems. Over 100,000 people entered to defend the city, and only a few thousand are making it back. So it did not go well for them. To say the least, it did not go well. That's like a 99-1 kind of like ratio there, As Vetus curses Ranknar, Sardau thinks to himself that there is only one god that matters now, the dragon. And that god is not on their side. It is on the opposing side of his people.
Heard.
Sarda suggests falling back to Ramastad. But as this suggestion comes across and gains momentum with Vetus, they see a massive light and explosion in Vinnikov. A mushroom cloud blooms up and lights up the sky with nuclear fire. Uh-oh. Vetus wants to know what that was because it was just like bright as shit. And Sarda just reports that Blood Marshal Enoch is gone. Yeah, no shit, right?
Heard.
The explosion is described here as, quote, only fire remained, a conflagration so large and ferocious it engulfed the sky like slow spreading ink and turned it red. And at the heart of the blaze, killing with fang and claw, a giant scaled in emerald scale, a myth brought terrifyingly to life. Oh yeah, boys, we got Vulkan in the house in the middle of a nuke, right? Crazy. Vulkan's first words of this story, because this is kind of like a beginning part of the story, is I am the son of a blacksmith, which is completely accurate, but we do need to bring up something here. And I stated this earlier in part 1, but I'm going to state it here. These stories are in chronological order based on when they start their timeline in the story itself. Okay. So this book takes place starting 20 to 30 years after Vulkan landed on Nocturne. So in this story, we don't actually get flashbacks or glimpses into that past because that's not what this story is about. Yes, the Primarch novels mostly take place starting before any of this, when they are kids, but their stories begin the tellings at various points in their lives, and so take place on the timeline around the time they start in the story, not based off of the structure of what's happening. So Conrad Kurz, his Primarch novel takes place after the Siege of Terra.
Okay.
So you won't see his until much later in the series. But a majority of that story goes back to before the siege takes place. But that's not what the book starts. It starts after the Siege of Terra. So that's what I mean. Like, it's in chronological order based off where it starts. And the battles on Erod were in 835 of the M30. So that's where we're starting. Not if you started the book here, right? This, when Vulkan and the Emperor are talking, this would be like potentially 5-10 years before the war on Vetus, or on the war on Erod. But when it started there, we started it on the war on Erod, so that's where it is chronologically. We don't see the beginning for Vulkan, just his first war after joining the Emperor and the Imperium. At several points of this story, it's good for me to point this out. The Emperor and Vulkan are shown talking to each other at several points in the same conversation. Remember how we talked about this earlier? That comes in and out of the story as it progresses, but it is in fact just one conversation they're having. The Emperor has already shown himself to Vulkan here as an outlander figure, but Vulkan knows this is the Emperor, his creator father, as this takes place after Vulkan had been found out before he joined the Great Crusade.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how the whole timeline works, right? So these conversation tidbits take place on Nocturne before Vulkan is in this war on Erod. So it's like jumping back and forth. By the way, do you know Nocturne? Do you know anything about it?
No.
It is the soot black volcanic homeworld of the Nocturnians.
Okay. Yeah, I have some idea that Nocturne had something to do with like darkness based on, its name, Nocturne, nocturnal.
Yeah, exactly.
But other than that, I don't know anything about it.
So it is in fact the soot black volcanic homeworld of the Nocturnians. It's also where Vulkan landed after being cast away from Terra in his little cryopod. Vulkan is trying to ascertain whether or not he can trust the Emperor to have shown who he really is to Vulkan, because And we'll get to that story, but the Emperor shows himself to his sons the first time meeting them in different ways.
Mhm.
And we've already seen some of this, like with the first story of this evening was Last Church.
Mhm.
The Emperor appeared to Uriah Olathair as just a dude.
Yeah.
When he appeared to Vulkan, he appeared as an outlander, someone who just is not of this world.
Mhm.
When he appears to Leman Russ, it is actually the story of Thor, right? The story of Leman Russ and how he meets the Emperor is the story of Thor going through his challenges
Okay.
with the giant king. I don't want to spoil too much, right? It's the story of Thor, and if you know anything about
got
it,
you.
you know the story of Leman Russ.
Yes. Space Vikings. I get
Sure,
it.
sure. Probably the only Primarch, by the way, who does this, like ascertaining whether or not the Emperor is who he really is. He is probably the only Primarch who doesn't just take the Emperor at face value, and he questions him almost with like a childlike innocence.
Yeah.
But he's a grown-ass dude. Vulkan remarks that the Emperor looks like a king, not an ordinary man, as he had appeared to everyone on Nocturne on his arrival. Stereotypical Emperor answer coming here, right? He says, quote, "But is a king not also a man?"
Okay.
Which, like, yeah, duh. But Vulkan knows something's up. Vulkan challenges him here by saying that vassals of a king do not see the king as just a man. And the
Yeah.
Emperor is physically proud of Vulkan here as he turns to face him. The Emperor calls himself an emperor now, where he stated before he was just a man, and then he was just a king, and now he's the emperor, right, all of a sudden. Vulkan parries this by saying, quote, greater than a king. You know? Just taking the piss. And your empire is the stars. You know, he's questioning. The Emperor looks up somberly and insists, which this is like bone chilling, right? Not yet. He's getting there. Showing us he isn't done bringing all his sons back into the fold yet, as darkness besets the void above. But he comes back to Vulkan and says, quote, "That is why I need you." He returns to the normal confident demeanor here and says, quote, "A blacksmith's son to help me bring the light of creation and to be one of my generals." But this upsets Vulkan. Vulkan wants to be seen as a builder, not a destroyer. The Emperor will have his yes, though. Like that's the one thing about the Emperor. He doesn't get a no.
Right.
He presses on his need for Vulkan, telling him he needs his leadership to help humanity throw off the shackles of old night, which specifically point to the end of the Dark Age of technology, where it turns into the Age of Strife. So where the Dark Age technology ends and the Age of Strife begins, that's known as Old Night.
Okay.
You will hear Old Night more than you will hear Dark Age of technology or Age of Strife, because Dark Age of technology and Age of Strife are more of a 40K thing and less of a 30K thing.
Gotcha.
Because in 40K, they're trying to put monikers on everything of like, this was the age of this, and this was that, and this was that, and this was that war, and that blah, 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 blah. They're cataloging everything. In 30K, it's sort of, they're building the backstory of humanity's push into the galaxy. The Emperor wants humanity to accept the truth. Imperial truth, of course, he's talking about. But Vulkan shows his wit here and says, "Your truth," almost like an accusation. The Emperor hits him back with the imperial truth, you know? Right? Quote, "There are no gods, and mankind's fate is what he or she makes it." Vulkan states here that the only truth he cares about knowing is that metal bends when he applies it to fire, which is like so simplistic of you, but it's one of those, like, he's a real meat and potatoes kind of guy, this Vulkan, you know?
Yeah.
He's a real salt of the earth. He just needs the work in his hands, and the earth beneath his feet to be what he was meant to be. And really that resonates for me, you know, especially living in today's society and like trying to make it in this industry we both are in, of just like, just give it hours. Let me work and shut up,
Exactly. 100%.
Pay me,
Let me work, pay me, and
Exactly.
I'll be happy.
Done. But the Emperor sees this in Vulkan as of like the meat and potatoes kind of guy and points to this specifically, saying that is why he is needed by the Emperor. Vulkan doesn't understand, of course, but the Emperor tells him that he will with time. Vulkan says, what if I don't want to leave? He even states here, quote, I'm a maker, not a destroyer. And the Emperor reads him like a book here, calling him out as someone who prefers a hammer to a sword, which Vulkan, his main weapon is a hammer, right? Also a teleporter, but we'll get to that. Just don't worry about it. He calls him, quote, an anvil with which to strike it. He prefers a hammer to a sword and, quote, an anvil with which to strike it. As the two contemplate each other here, we see in the background an enormous eruption of the third most famous mountain in the Warhammer setting, Mount Deathfire. It's a super volcano on the surface of Nocturne. In the lee of this, the Emperor asks what it will take for him to join. Vulkan says, if the Emperor can say something to convince him, he will come willingly, and we now see one of the most rare things two people will ever say to each other in this setting. Vulkan asks the Emperor for the truth, and the Emperor promises to give him the truth completely unconcealed, which is something he never does. The conversation skips away here, though. Back in 835, there's a pretty cool swap up here where truth is brought up. So the Emperor says, I will tell you the truth. And then it goes to the next part of the story where truth, the word, is being used to tell something about the Blood Guard. The Blood Guard of Ranknar say the Imperium promised to come with truth, but came sheathed in lies themselves, which I thought was like the coolest transition.
Yeah.
Sarda remembers what the priests have been teaching about not trusting the Imperium, and now Vetus is the last of their religious order. As they seal the last citadel against the coming Imperial forces, the people behind the walls of this last bastion cower in fear of the Emperor and his dragon he has unleashed. Sarda is having, let's say, a crisis of faith. He believes things could have been better if they had laid down their weapons and accepted the Imperial truth, but Vetus threatens to kill him for his heretical thoughts against Ranknar here, but he defiantly asks, and where's Ranknar now? Like, Vetus is like, how dare you give up on your god? And Sarda is like, where is he now?
Right.
He's just testing Vetus, who is struggling to come to grips with the fact that they will all be dead alongside their forgotten god soon, right? He will not abandon us, is Vetus's quote here, just showing how desperate he is. Vetus calls for a ritualistic sacrifice. He sends for them to ready a force known as the Boggartiers, like the Musketeers or Grenadiers. Boggartiers. What comes to mind is like the Grotlings and the Snotlings on their pump wagons, right? But that is far from what comes out in the end here, let me tell you. As they are all having a minor religious freakout, they all stop and stare out the window again, and they see the Imperial artillery and tank lines lining up across the range on the horizon. A ground pounders, baby. You know what I'm saying? But of course, they have shields around their city, so I don't get to see my epic artillery engagement, but why wouldn't they? I mean, nevertheless, the siege begins for the final battle, the final time on Arod. And then it cuts back to the conversation. So in the conversation, Vulkan tells the Emperor that when he shed his disguise to reveal himself to the people of Nocturne and to Vulkan himself, something physically changed about him. He wants to know if who he sees now is the person who the Emperor is presenting himself to be, or is this the real Emperor, or just another illusion? Which, like,
I got you.
Way to go, Vulkan, for asking all the right questions here.
Yeah.
He is not fooled by the Emperor in any way. He's impressed by him for sure, but he's not fooled by him. The Emperor shows his progressive side here by quoting, "Isn't identity just a matter of perception?"
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, people choose what they want to see and they see it. But Vulkan tries to stay on subject here and just asks, "But was it a trick?" The Emperor literally says, "But like, why does it matter?" Right? He's going to answer the question. He's going to answer the question, but he wants to know why Vulkan asks it to see how his mind works, right? He wants to know why Vulkan wants to know why.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's awed by Vulkan. Vulkan is one of his greatest creations, and we'll get to why much later. But Vulkan is very different from any of his brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Vulkan says he wants to get the measure of the man who would ask him to leave everything he has ever known behind to join him on something greater. And the Emperor says, you could perceive it as a trick to show what those who saw him wanted to see. But Vulkan just basically is like, so that magic though, so you must be sorcerer, right? Because he's just a dude from a backwater volcanic planet. Just watch somebody Skyrim change in front of him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, not literally does he say this, but almost does he say this. The Emperor hates the word sorcerer though when describing him, and says magic is not really it. It's not real either, but it's merely science yet to be understood, which is one of my favorite quotes about technology in general, Connor, and comes to us from a man known as Arthur C. Clarke. That quote in our actual reality is, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean by that?
I kind of get a grasp on it.
Because I'm totally here for this shit. So, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic by Arthur C. Clarke. It means that, like, if you go back early 1900s, right? People barely had phones. But if you were to take a smartphone right now back to the early 1900s, it's magic. You can see people's faces. Yeah. You can take pictures. You can call people. There's no, like, it's got a battery. Like, what the fuck's a battery? That's what I mean, you know? And that's the quote of, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. The Emperor does something that I love here by using your perception against you, which he does quite a bit. I won't lie, but it showcases to Vulkan that just because something seems like magic or could be believed as such, that it doesn't stop people from embracing it or joining in to make new experiences and headways. He wants to bring an end to the atrocities and that ignorance in all of its forms of human dominance has brought. Okay? Big visions here. The Emperor says, quote, "I won't lie, there has been much blood spilled on this journey, and there will be more. I never imagined the enlightenment of mankind would be an easy task, nor one accomplished without violence, however regrettable." So he's like, yeah, I've killed people, and yeah, people have died for this, but I never thought it wouldn't come to that. You know, I know that's what it's going to take. Mm-hmm. The Emperor speaks of his failures and loses himself in thought until Vulkan asks him to tell Vulkan of his brothers, since he may meet them soon. He's like, well, what about my brothers? You know, tell me about them. We get some world building here that shows us maybe not all, but some of the Primarchs that have been found at this point in the timeline of 835 M30. Vulkan asks if his brothers are like him, and the Emperor responds in such a way, and this is emotional, right? I don't know if it's the way that Christopher Tester reads it on Audible, or how I perceived it as I was reading along with him, or how I just liken this answer to how I feel when I hold, you know, my son in my hands and I'm talking to him. Yeah. But he says, and I'm going to try and capture the intonation and the smile in the voice when Vulkan asks, "Are my brothers like me?" The Emperor is just like, "Utterly unlike you. And this is your single greatest trait, my proudest achievement." He tells Vulkan that he will meet them if he comes to the stars with him, but he has yet to even find them all, so he will help with that too. But he says wistfully, quote, "You will learn much from them and they from you." But this gives Vulkan pause. He wants to know if they are from Death Worlds too, you know? And the Emperor's like, like sort of, kind of, but not all of them, right? Like some of them are, but not some of them aren't. His words and descriptors of what his brothers have been on their worlds tell us which have been found, along with the names he says next. But the descriptors are the most important here because it's being spoken as if there are more than one of each of these, which gives us really good clues as to who's been found.
Okay.
He says, quote, "Some are kings, some are scholars, chieftains, and slaves, even blacksmiths," which tells me potentially, based on the clues, that Lionel and Guilliman, Lionel Johnson, Roboute Guilliman, those are the kings. Sanguinius and Magnus are the scholars. Lehman, Russ, and Jagatai Khan are the chieftains. And Angron and Corvus are potentially the slaves, right? Probably not Ferrus, but I do know Ferrus has been found because we see him in this story. We see Ferrus here when Vulkan asks him who he would find the most kinship with right off the bat, and the Emperor fades out telling Vulkan, "Let me tell you of your brother Ferrus Manus," right? Ferrus Manus is the other blacksmith. The problem with Ferrus versus Vulkan is that Ferrus builds things utterly devoid of beauty. Like everything to him is just metal. And they never really change that up, which is why I say this guy, right? There's Manus. But Vulkan makes things that are masterworks, right? Like in their ranking tier quality, Ferrus Manus is making blues and Vulkan is making golds. You know what I'm saying?
Heard. Gotcha.
So it's a good time to cut away back to the present here within the eyes of Mr. Vince McManus himself, who describes his brother from afar as ferocious. He's reveling in the sight of his brother on the battlefield and talking to the Emperor. He says, quote, "The way you described him, I thought..." But the Emperor cuts him off here and says, "I know," right? Because Ferrus has underestimated his brother Vulkan based off descriptors alone. Quote, "I expected a blacksmith, but he is a destroyer. I thought the Wolf King," called it, because that means Lehman's been found, "had fury, but this, where did you find him?" Vulkan is seen leading a company of Ferrus Manus' own sons, the Iron Hands, here, because he hasn't been fully reunited with his own legion yet. They're just testing him out right now on a battlefield. So he's leading the Iron Hands into battle. The Emperor asks for an assessment of Vulkan after briefly discussing the Drake scale armor that Vulkan's wearing. Ferrus, this guy's himself, right? By saying, "Overly flamboyant, but it appears to serve well." And the Emperor is literally like, "I meant your brother, not his armor." You know? Don't be this guy. Which, again, is just why I keep taking the piss out of Ferrus Manus, you know? These moments they write for Ferrus is just, he only sees the function over form, never the form in anything. So Ferrus Manus, also known as the Gorgon, he says, quote, "He fights like a Medusan earworm," which, I don't know if you remember the great beast he was hunting that we still haven't seen him slay yet. That's what he was hunting. A Medusan earworm. Meaning greater or like older or elder. Earworm. Are they all like that where he came from? The Emperor just smiles and says, quote, "No, he is unique, as are you." I mean, he really is a proud dude to see these sons not sons of his. Because remember, even Malkador was like, I don't know why he's calling them his sons all of a sudden. He wasn't doing that before. Oh, well, you know? They are his greatest creations. And the only thing I can liken this to dude, and I know you know this, but it's like seeing a great plate you made published in a magazine or just like immortalized in something. So it's like it like never tarnishes in your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like seeing a publication or a picture of something you've done, because especially in our industry, right? You make a plate and you could have poured dozens of hours into, thinking about the recipe, building it up, putting it out, and then it's just gone as soon as someone eats it.
Yeah.
But it's like it could be the best thing you've ever done. But he sees his sons here like that. And I do say sons, even though I know they're not his sons. Ferrus says that Russ, Horus, and even Fulgrim, so we know at least those as well have been found, match the prowess shown by Vulkan, mark them up to being found again by 835 M30. That puts us at least 10 that had been sort of hinted at in this lineup. 10 out of the 20. Okay?
All right.
I should say the 19. But we'll get into that later. Right? The gates of the city open, and the Bogartiers are seen marching on the field amidst a red mist, and Ferrus and the Emperor join the fight with Vulkan. What do you think a Bogartier would look like?
Couldn't imagine. Something with heavy machinery, though, I would assume.
Sure. So these Bogartiers are described right after this as hulking, ground-trembling golem engines. So I would assume they are bigger than a dreadnought, but then it goes on to tell us that they totally are. Like a dreadnought is like 15 to 18 feet tall, right? Double the size of an Astartes. Ferrus even says he stands eye to eye currently with one of the Bogartiers 20 meters up on a hill, and he's also like 15 feet tall in his armor. So this thing's like 25 meters tall, 75 feet.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Titans.
Yes. So they appear to be impervious to pretty much everything coming their way from the Imperial lines. They have energy shielding and remind me of Titans as they're described here as they stride the battlefield. They are said to have the appearance of marble statues and remind Ferrus of knights of old, but nothing of the sort, he says. So they look like knights, but they're totally not. War engines, part machine, part biological. Vetus, the priest from earlier, he's looking down here and tries to rally Sarda to show him the Imperial is faltering in this final assault. But Sarda points to the field where the dragon has marched right up to the Bogartiers. Vetus is like, look, the Empire is failing. And Sarda just like, what that? Right? And Vulkan is just walking up to these 75-foot tall war machines. As the conversation comes back, Vulkan says he believes that the Emperor wants to save mankind, and he has a vision and means to see it done, whatever the cost it may bring. The Emperor agrees. He has, and he will. He tells Vulkan that there is only one path that humanity can walk that doesn't end in its extinction, the path he brings. He wants only evolution, and will see it through. Mm-hmm. Vulkan cuts to the heart here and supposes that the Emperor only created these Primarch sons because his vision is so grand and singular that he must have needed to make his own sons just to have people to talk to and share ideas with as like minds. And the Emperor likens himself to Vulkan here, saying, quote, I sometimes think of myself as a creator, much as you think of yourself as a maker, and other times a father. Yet I find I am removed. My concerns are of a lofty nature. He's like, I don't really, The Emperor says he is partly right here, and he wants to see humanity evolve into perpetual beings, which is ironic considering Vulkan, but you will learn more about that later. He wants to see humanity evolve past the need for death. Mm-hmm. The Emperor presses Vulkan for an answer again here, and Vulkan tells his father he needs, quote, you want to bring light into darkness, and you will wage war to achieve it. You need warlords, a sword to kill or conquer, not a hammer to build with. The Emperor insists again that Vulkan is what he needs, saying, quote, a sword to conquer, a hammer to build. One need not render the other obsolete, which is so freeing to think about it that way without the idea of religion, because what you normally hear about is like the old passage talking about hammering plowshares into swords and swords into plowshares,
Mhm.
but it doesn't think to ask like why we don't have both for times of expansion and struggle. It just puts one over the other in both situations, right? So like we hammer our swords into plowshares, we put away war to build. But as things move forward and you struggle, you're going to always have conflict. So you need both. And that's
Right.
not just how I see it. That's how it's being presented here without religion.
Hmm.
Vulkan asks one last question here to make up his mind on whether or not he's going to go. He says his brothers are all various kings, rulers, artisans, but what can he teach them that they don't already know? It's a good question, you know?
Yeah.
Back to the war, the boggartiers that stand before Vulkan begin to fall versus his tremendous might. And I mean, remember, Vulkan in full armor is probably around 13 to 15 feet on that mark. And he is going up against things described over 75 foot tall with a hammer.
Yeah.
Total badass, right? It takes 3 Imperial tank squadrons to take down one of these boggartiers. But Vulkan does it with a hammer to the next one. Just raw power.
Yeah.
The Emperor kills one here himself, and it is described just crazy. Because everything that the Emperor is about, it kind of reminds me of like the Elder Scrolls when they talk about the power of Kim or Chim, people like to say. When someone zero sums or ascends to the dreamer state in Elder Scrolls, they're able to do things that make no sense. So it's kind of one of those things. The Emperor kills one here, and it's described as the last died more swiftly, almost too fast to perceive. A firestorm took it, or a man all clad in gold. Sarda saw both, and yet neither. Glimpses of something that defied reasonable explanation before the boggartier capitulated utterly. It simply peeled apart as if something that stitched it together unspooled.
Oh my God.
Bro is literally the laws of physics.
Yeah.
Seeing their inevitable doom, Vetus readies his last offensive gesture inside the citadel, while in the ruins of one of the boggartiers, Ferrus Manus finds something ludicrous. I mean, look at this nerd always looking at machines and shit, right?
Yeah.
Piloting these war machines are weak, feeble children that were filled with combat stims and sacrificed to Ranknar to pilot these colossi.
Okay.
Ferrus gives this child a warm milk nappy time. We'll put it that way. And he moves on disturbed.
Yeah.
As he moves on, he hears the voice of the dragon in his auspex. Another one of those words where auspex means like any form of communication, right?
Mhm.
Like this is an auspex, this is an auspex, this is a vox caster,
Yeah.
right? Bring down the gates now, father. Vulkan is lost in the sauce, right?
Yeah.
Ferrus almost thinks this is disrespectful for him to talk to the Emperor that way, but the Emperor orders the barrage on the gates. It blows in on itself amidst the firestorm, and in storms Vulkan himself, as they come to all realize the Citadel is about to launch a virus bomb. Very bad. Do you know what a virus bomb does?
I mean, I would assume that's a bomb that sets off a virus that eradicates all living organisms.
Yeah, it's a lot more than that. We'll get to that though.
Okay.
They're gonna set off this virus bomb that will kill everyone on the planet, Imperial and Ranknarian Erades. It doesn't say.
All of them.
It'll kill everyone, both sides.
Mhm.
Even as they try to stop the launch of the missile, the artillery picks up until Vulkan calls for the Emperor to hold fire all of a sudden. He's just like, cease fire. As Ferrus moves to reinforce Vulkan, an errant tactical warhead fired from the Imperial lines to try and destroy the missile command accidentally hits Vulkan instead.
My God.
Right?
Yeah.
Ferrus and everyone around says there is no way he's still alive. Everyone is distraught because this is the first time anyone has ever seen the death of a Primarch.
Mm-hmm.
But out of the gloom and firestorm that dissipates, there stands Vulkan, undying and invincible. His armor is totally fucked, but in his hands, there's a child that he found that he was trying to save from the destruction of the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
So he just like grabbed this kid, folded up, and then took the nuke straight on his back.
Yeah.
This selfless act ends the war here as the believers of Ranknar see that their priests were totally wrong about this guy. This dragon that was said to be bringing annihilation to all of them had shown mercy to even the smallest members of the battlefield. They immediately stop their vigor, lay down their weapons. Erod is under Imperial control, and Sarda gives us one last glimpse of what he's going to do. He's joining the Imperial army to leave the world.
Mm-hmm.
And hanging from the battlements, he sees Vedis's strewn body just hanging by his neck. And he's like, that guy can rot for all I care. He's leaving the world to join the Imperial army. Vulkan becomes a legend to these people. The story ends here with the Emperor answering Vulkan's question, where he makes up his mind and decides to go with him into the stars. And here is where the quote from our story comes from. There's such a heartwarming quote showcasing how the Emperor actually feels about his son Vulkan. And again, it's one of those things. He's not this genuine with everybody. So this is really important.
Mm-hmm.
The last question was, despite what Vulkan's brothers can do and what they're known for, what can he teach them that they already don't know? Are you ready?
Yeah.
The quote is, and I only gave you a little bit at the beginning, it is simple. Your brothers will be great and powerful. They are beyond mankind in so many ways, as are you. They will learn to be warriors quickly. The ways of conquest and liberations, leading armies, inspiring the lesser men around them to greatness will be second nature to them, as it will to you. But your lesson, Vulkan, it is the most crucial, and you are uniquely disposed to teach it. Humanity. And with that, Vulkan follows the Emperor into the void of space, and this is where we're going to end his story for now.
All right. It's a good story.
That was Mercy of the Dragon. What did you feel about that?
It was a good story. I liked it. I was actually thinking about. I wasn't thinking about Mercy of the Dragon earlier. I was actually thinking about Vulkan as a Primarch earlier while I was at work today. Just one of the random thoughts, and it's quite hilarious that we actually did a story on him. So.
Yeah. And based off of all of the Primarchs we learned about tonight, with Horus and Ferrus Manus, Guilliman, and Vulkan, these are some of the some of the better stories to be learning about right here at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a little bit into who they are and what makes them unique. And this story in particular for me is so powerful, right? Because in a universe where the ridiculous shit happens every time, for humanity to be like human nature or human kindness, or to be human being the thing that Vulkan can teach his brothers, is like, he's number one in that. He's not number one in a lot of things. Art of war, not very good. Crafting in general, he's great at. Probably the best. But really what he is number one in is his humanity, which is so crazy to me, Yeah. So yeah, how'd you feel about everything overall?
No, they were some really good stories. I enjoyed them.
Which one would you say, out of Last Church, Lupus Daemonis, Canticle, Sinew of War, and Mercy of the Dragon, which one was your favorite?
Out of all of them, I'd honestly have to say probably Mercy of the Dragon.
Yeah.
And it's a good story. I see where a lot of it can be sentimental. Last Church was a good one for me. I enjoyed that one too. It's more of the philosophical side between religion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I enjoy conversations like that, and just in general. So
Yeah,
I'd say those two.
I'd say that's a pretty good choice. You know, out of all the ones that were new to me to read about, I really liked Lupus Daemonis.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a really cool story. I wasn't too fond of the reveal, but you know that's what most people thought of it. But I thought it was really cool in the way that Chthonia is described. Now, out of Last Church and Mercy of the Dragon, Mercy of the Dragon, you know, because I've read both of those before. But Lupus Daemonis, Canticle, and Sinew of War, I never read. So that's because two of them are from the same book, you know, and I have never read that book in general. So yeah, that was part 2 of
episode 2.
Yep, first 5 short stories. Okay, so actually, next time when we come back, I'm glad you liked Mercy of the Dragon, because the next book is the first Primarch novel chronologically.
Okay.
Vulkan, Lord of Drakes.
Oh, that's cool.
So we're going to learn about Vulkan, start to finish next. Well, not finish, but start.
Yeah.
And then move on, you know? So after that, we get... okay, there aren't any Primarchs I hate, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are just some Primarchs I don't love, right? I love them in ways that make it very close to hate, right? I love to hate them, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like, have you ever seen Hell on Wheels?
Yes.
Okay.
First season.
Okay. So the Swede in Hell on Wheels is like the best recurring villain, because he's just so like you fucking hate him, right? Like,
yeah.
And like he comes back and you're just like, God, it's this fucking guy again, right? After Vulkan, Lord of Drakes, we get Lorgar, Bearer of the Word. So Lorgar Aurelian, Primarch of the Word Bearers. I'm personally a fan of Lorgar's downfall, right? Because it's so believable. It's so like understandable. His Legion sucks, dude. Like there are so many characters, and one in particular that's really good, but there are so many characters in the Word Bearers that are just like, I fucking hate you, right? Like, but again, I love to hate them, right? Because they're just written to be really good villains, and so that's the next 2 stories. They're shorter books. I don't know if I'm gonna do them both in the same episode. I'm probably gonna not, based off of them both being longer. They're about the same size as Valdor, Birth of the Imperium was. So I think we'll just do them each in an episode. So
I'm down with that.
Next episode, episode 3, Vulkan, Lord of Drakes.
Heard.
And I'm super excited about it. You know,
I am too.
I'm excited for you to learn about it. Vulkan's a really good Primarch. Salamanders is a really good Legion. I even have a Salamander right here, if you wouldn't believe it. You know?
I don't.
Well, he looks like one for a certain amount of time, for sure.
I mean, maybe at first glance, but
no.
Take a closer look, you know.
He's a salamander. But yeah, so I'm excited about it, and I hope you know the listeners and people who are following us along on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Drop a like, comment, subscribe, follow us for the next episode, where we see episode 3, Vulkan, Lord of Drakes. We'll see you guys next time.
Later.